Sort of jumping into it, most people that are gonna come watch this or listen to this to hear Jacquire King they're already very well familiar with the amazing records you've made and are continuing to make. But one thing that I personally wanted to touch on, and that I don't think a lot of people are going to be too aware of, is just how generous you are with your time and your commitment over the years to being a mentor to so many, me included. But I just wanted to talk to you about kind of where that comes from. Has that always been something that you've put effort and time into, or is that something that came over the years?
Well, thank you for that. First of all,
Thank you.
that acknowledgement. And, that's a good question. I think that it's perhaps, I mean, it's certainly part of my personality, but I think it also could be a function of the struggles I had as a young person in school learning.
Mm.
Um, and that I faced a lot of challenges, was ridiculed some, did not feel, have always felt like a little bit of an outsider. So I'm always aware of the people in the room that maybe don't get a voice
Mm.
um, as much. And honestly, I think I'm also, I would say that I'm a pretty emotional person. I'm pretty sensitive. And I think that I have discovered over time that people, for good and bad, people have gravitated towards me. People look to me for advice and confide in me. I take all that very seriously, uh, appreciate it. I like the interaction. I'm not, as you know me really well, man. I'm not someone that easily makes small talk.
Right.
I can sit around and talk, and it's not like I don't like to talk, but I don't really, I'm not someone that really engages in casual communication.
Right. Yeah. Me too.
Uh, so it's just like, I don't know, it just seems like a natural thing. And I think over time, because of, I've been doing this for more than 30 years, um, sort of the time that you had with me was preceded by others, and
Mm-hmm.
is now followed by Dawson March.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize that all you have, like, high value, high potential. Everyone does, and so I don't know, it just makes me feel like investing in it, because when you grow and win, then I feel like I've grown and won as well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of it's a thing that I enjoy. I get a lot out of it. I learn. The thing is I learn. I've become a better person as well by um, just sharing the experience, teaching, showing what I know. I don't necessarily look at it so much as teaching,
Mm-hmm.
in that, I mean, I know I do teach
Sure.
by definition, but I don't look at myself as a teacher. I just look at as myself as someone that shares my experience, and that you and everyone else that maybe is exposed to it will just take something of value away from it, and give yourself, it will become confidence for you and insight on how to become better at the things that you desire to become better at. So I guess
Yeah.
that's
No,
the
I
answer.
that's really great, and that's really why I wanted to bring it up, because that's not always the case in this sort of field. People are very busy, and they can be selfish with their time, which they can choose to be. But I like to shed light on that, because not only does it change people's lives like mine, and if anybody's listened to Rachel's podcast with me, she mentioned you as well, and Danny, and now Dawson. And not only that, it has ripple effects of, like, I take that on now myself, because it was a kindness was shown to me, and when someone reaches out on Instagram, or sends me a mix of like, hey, what do you think here, or like, how can I make this better? It's like without a thought of like, I'm gonna invest time to help and pass along the information because someone took the time to do that for me. So I think that's a really admirable quality, and I think something that people should know. So
I appreciate it, man.
um,
Well, it's not, I mean, it's not entirely selfless.
sure, yeah,
You get, like if you answer someone's question about what they think about what you think about a mix, you have to develop the skill to communicate it in a constructive way and to tell them the things that you think they need to hear, but do it in a way that empowers them.
yeah,
And so that's like, especially working as a record maker in the studio, that's a skill that, you really have to be aware of. It's because it's an intimate thing. Someone's letting their guard down.
mm-hmm.
You're you're giving them insight and helping to guide them, but you want to hold them up. But typically what you have to say to them, you don't talk about like if you're giving a mixed critique,
Mm-hmm.
you may mention the positives,
Yeah,
but really what it's about is the things that you think that they could do better.
right,
And so so that is a sort of a negative that you're focusing on,
sure,
and just doing it in a way that empowers people that's a skill, and that's something you do many, many times in a day, especially when you're working with, artists and musicians in the studio.
right, yeah. And then like you said, I mean, it's not entirely selfless. It's like uh, I ask all the time, like if somebody sends me a mix and it's like, there's a couple things that I've sort of focused on, like sort of on the things you can improve side. There's also like more often than not, like, wow, shit, how'd you get it so loud? Or like, hey, what are you using? Like, what'd you do for this? And they'll be like, oh, it's this thing. And like, oh, I should go check that out. And you can go sort of check it out, and you sort of exchanging of ideas and information. Sort of going along with the mentorship thing. Were there any people along your career when you were first starting out that sort of imparted some of this on you and that you could look up to as a mentor?
Um, well, I think, it's like, it takes me back to the first part of the way that I answered the question. It's just like some of the teachers,
Mm.
that helped me, along the way, took the time for, a kid that had potential but had learning disabilities and was kind of in a tough spot, to
Mm-hmm.
just sort of take the time to figure out, uh, how to interact with me, so that would kind of unlock some of the roadblocks I had going on.
Mm.
Um, you know, it's interesting. I didn't really ever have too much of a consistent opportunity to spend time with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I think where I got the most exposure and value out of, um, sort of mentorship type of opportunities was just being, an assistant engineer and working at different
Mm-hmm.
studios, uh, where that opportunity doesn't exist as much anymore. But, just all the producer and engineers that would come through.
Mm-hmm.
I would say if I could identify one person, it would be Eric Valentine.
Mm.
I'm actually a few years older than Eric, and in many ways we are friends and peers. But his success, I mean, he's incredibly talented,
Right.
and he found success at a younger age, and he he started working professionally just barely out of high school age. So when I met him, he was kind of farther along, and so I looked up to him, and he embraced, uh, in me our friendship, and then gave me some opportunities along the way.
Mm.
But it wasn't as much about him teaching me as just sort of partnering with me.
Yeah.
Because I already at that time, I mean, I will say I already had a lot to offer, and I think that that's part of what made the relationship work so quickly. But I think that that's the one person that I could point to, at least in the professional
Mm.
sphere. It was it was a great opportunity to become his friend and make a few records with him.
Yeah. Well, uh, Eric's a genius, and everybody just uh, is usually in awe of the weird shit that he does, and to for him to the partnership of you two it makes a lot of sense in a fun way that I wish I could have been in the room for some of those. I think that would have been a lot of fun. Um, you mentioned sort of the outcast sort of having a tough time in school, and is that sort of where your love of music might have come from? I know for like me, I felt very very similar. Not so much in I didn't struggle so much academically, although I mean I was definitely not the brightest, but I'm terrible at making friends and felt very awkward and would always feel singled out, maybe even unnecessarily so. And I know that was one of the things that really drove me into music. Um, where did like where did your initial love for music come from? Was it from always being around the house, or is it something you just gravitated towards?
Well, I think um, I had an interest in well, let's see, how can I? Are you editing this at all?
I mean, I can if you'd like.
Yeah, it's fine. No, it's fine. No, I don't know. Just like if there's little moments like that, but I don't care. If you want to leave it in, it's fine.
Yeah.
I was just trying to gather my thoughts. I think I just always attracted to music on the radio.
Hmm.
My mom's record collection. When I was small, I entertained the idea of wanting to be a radio DJ.
Mm.
Um, so and then I asked for drums when I was young. I got a guitar instead. I maybe asked for drums. I must have been about 6.
Yeah.
I got a guitar instead. I played some bass in high school. I took, guitar and bass lessons. But I just always went back to my fascination with records, and that initial sort of thought of wanting to be a radio DJ. I had no real idea what it was
Yeah.
in particular, but I can't really point to any one specific thing. I don't know that. I guess to answer your question more specifically, I don't think that my troubles in school really led me to music as a source of, I don't know, something to do or comfort or
Hmm.
just like an environment for me to sort of hide out in.
Yeah.
It was always there in my life, and then when I dropped out of college, um, it kind of caused a stir at home, and I just I realized that I needed to do something with my life. I didn't want to be in college. I didn't want to be in school. I didn't want to have a traditional path.
Yeah.
Um, and honestly, in high school, I thought what I was going to do when I got out of high school was going to open like a gym.
Oh, okay.
But so I just say that because I always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. I
Hmm.
just kind of wanting to do things my own way on my own, and I didn't really want to necessarily. Not that I thought that my dad's job was a bad job. He actually had a pretty neat job. He worked for a publication company that did books and magazines, and
Mm.
it's a lot of cool things. But I just didn't want to put on a suit and tie on every day and go to an office.
Yeah.
Um, and when I dropped out of college, I got a job moving furniture,
Hmm.
and I was like, okay, it's fine. It's something I can show up and work hard and make some money. But then, after doing that for 6 months, I was like, this is not how I want to live my life.
Yeah.
And looking at the older guys that like maybe drove the truck and, that had been doing it a while, it's like, this doesn't seem like the path I want to stay on.
Right.
So I've got to do something that I'm passionate about and create an opportunity for myself. Even if it didn't mean I made a lot of money, I just wanted to do something like that. And I reflected on my time working in a record store
Hmm.
as a teenager and being I've always been fascinated by liner notes and the art and just all the music history. And I just always thought like how neat it would be to have your name on the back of a record. So it
Yeah.
just, I don't know, all those things kind of came together in a when I was maybe, I guess I would have been 19, just decided, okay, well, I got to figure something out. And I saw an ad in Rolling Stone magazine for the recording workshop. And I was like, well, maybe I'll give that a shot.
Yeah. And that's where it started. That you
That's where it
hadn't really
started.
made any records or I mean, like, had much experience up to that point.
No, other than recording, other than recording some DJ show tapes, compilation tapes on cassette, and then some of my high school friends who had bands, sort of getting experience with hanging out with them, getting a little bit of experience with their 4-track and PA, a little bit of exposure to that.
Yeah.
I didn't really know it was a passion at the time, but it just sort of came easy to me because I like to tinker with stuff. I mean, I remember when I was about 10 or 11, in the springtime, my dad grew up on a dairy farm, and they were my dad's family was very self-reliant. And I remember a spring came, I think I was 10 or 11, I could have been 12, but it was time to kind of get the mowers and everything in shape for, the season. And my dad just sent me to the barn. He just told me to the barn and sent me to the barn and just get everything working. And it's not like it's not like I had to figure out, it took me forever. I knew some of the things I was supposed to do, and I figured out why I couldn't get the push mower to start, that I took the engine apart enough to figure out that I needed to clean the spark plug and change the oil.
Yeah.
So I just kind of have that attitude about things. I'm not really afraid. I'm not really afraid of getting my hands dirty and just trying to figure something out. I most of the time, through just sheer determination, can get stuff done.
Yeah.
And then if not, then I go seek help. And but by seeking help, I kind of know where my limitations are, and I know what to ask for.
Sure. Right. Yeah. That's an important distinction too, of like, knowing where I need to ask somebody who might be a little smarter or know what I need to fix here. So you go from reading Rolling Stone, seeing an ad, and then going to the recording workshop, and then you get out of that, and what? You move to LA immediately? Do you?
No, I grew up in Northern Virginia, and I go home, and at the time there wasn't job placement help. They just they didn't help with any of that stuff. They basically trained you, gave you a little advice about what the opportunities would be, and some insights about like how you were supposed to maybe go about looking. So I came home, and this would have been 1987. So there's no internet, there's no cell phones, none of that's, the internet's not, it's just, there's nothing to sort of do other than I opened up the Yellow Pages, and I just started calling all the TV stations, the radio stations, the recording studios, any business in my area that I thought I could apply the training I just had. And then I lucked into a position at a studio called Balance Sound in Bethesda, Maryland, because the engineer that I was replacing went over to another studio called Alpha Omega, which was in, no, wait, is that out? No, maybe it's not. No, excuse me. Alpha Omega was in San Francisco. It might've been called Bias.
Okay.
In Northern Virginia. And I think, and some of the guys at Bias were also part of API.
Oh, nice.
So I never, thing is, I didn't really ever, all that was like a different studio, and I didn't even ever go there or anything. I talked to them a couple times on the phone. I remember getting a call from one of the engineers over there, because they had a project going for like a local Washington, D.C. kind of go-go artist. Which is go-go music is kind of like an early version of hip hop, but it was like live band. It's like live band hip hop stuff way back in the day.
Yeah.
And I kind of erased something on their tape that they didn't, that I shouldn't have. But
Oh.
I thought I was doing a good job, but as it turns out, I screwed up.
Whoops.
Because the artist that they had been working with wanted to do something, couldn't get time booked in their studio, so booked in at Balance Sound.
Mm-hmm.
It was a night session. They always put me on the night sessions, and so what it was, there was some background vocals, and in the background vocals, they had purposely chatted up the girls that were doing the background vocals because they wanted the little conversational stuff.
Oh, right.
In the music behind it. And I thought it was where I had things balanced. All that stuff, all that chatter just seemed like it wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And I took the bold move of erasing it in between the background vocal parts.
Yeah.
And they were freaking pissed. But anyways, I forget what. So you were asking me. So anyways, it's like tangent there.
That's what this is.
So
I
got a job at Balance Sound. I would work the day sessions as the assistant engineer. We did music for commercials. We did voiceover dialogue for radio ads. We do sometimes outside projects would come in. I don't remember his name at all, but he was an awesome engineer, and I don't remember the artist or anything about it other than it was kind of a rock band with a female vocalist. And he had been working for Rick Rubin up in New York so this was very early days, Rick Rubin.
Okay.
And this guy was really sharp, and I learned a few things from him that were super powerful, that, just insights into like advanced record making that I hadn't yet seen. And they would put me on the night sessions with, local bands or whatever that would come from out of town. They'd sell the studio time on the off hours cheap, and they'd put me on it. So I did that. I was there at Balance Sound for about a year, and then eventually made my way out to a job in San Francisco.
Oh, all right. That's I love those kinds of stories where you think you're doing the right thing, and then you're like, oh fuck, that was wrong. Whoops.
Yes, I fucked up.
I've had so many of those where it's like, oh yeah, this is I'm going above and beyond, and then they're like, hey, where's this thing? You're like, fuck.
I erased it.
Yeah.
Thanks, pal.
Oh, it's gone.
So you mean I can't come get a job over there now?
Yeah. You guys aren't hiring, huh? Oh shit. Okay. So you make your way out west, and you're in San Francisco, and I think for a lot of people that's where, the Jacquire King sort of mythology. Everyone's aware of the San Francisco years and the LA and all the fantastic artists you get to work with there. Tom Waits and so many others, but I kind of wanted to ask how. Trying to think here, what's the right way around this? I've heard a lot of engineers at some point they have a record or a time in their life where they feel like they turn a corner, or there's a record in particular that they can look back on that they really came into their own on. Is there one in particular for you that sticks out where you're like, wow, that was where things changed for me in a lot of ways?
I would attribute it to. I would attribute the most significant, transformation in career with the Tom Waits Mule Variations album.
Mule Variations,
because it pays dividends to this day, because it's such a he's such an artist,
right?
And it's it was an incredible experience. I mean, just reflecting on your earlier question about mentors, even though Tom was an artist I was working for, the exposure to him and his process and the way that he wanted to have things happen
Mm-hmm.
really was like a mentor, a real formative mentoring
Mm.
opportunity to me as well. Um, but so I would say that the Tom Waits Mule Variations is probably the most significant, because if it wasn't for that,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have had the other opportunities that also sort of help change and transform my career. I can draw a line from uh, making that record to a really heavy sort of rock band called Billy Talent,
Mm-hmm.
because Ian, the songwriter and guitar player in the band, even though their music was nothing like Tom's music, he loved the feel and sound and the way that that artist was portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
And Nora Jones, that's what Mule Variations is, one of Nora's favorite albums.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I got an opportunity to work with the producer uh, that I worked with for the Buddy Guy record
Mm.
because of Tom Waits. Um, uh, what else?
Foy Vance
Modest
too,
Mouse.
right? Was it?
Modest Mouse. That
Mm.
Tom Waits was a favorite artist of theirs, and so then those things lead you to other opportunities. And although Kings of Leon came before Nora Jones,
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned her first, but um, those things that led me to a connection with Ethan Johns and making a connection with Kings of Leon.
Mm-hmm.
So it there's a cumulative effect. I would say that Tom Waits was viewed very favorably among artists, but because it's not a commercial type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
it gave me a lot of credibility, Grammy, a lot of critical
Mm-hmm.
awareness and artist awareness. It didn't really deliver me to a place where big major labels were calling me to do work. I you go back to Modest Mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the engineering and mixing that album and having Float On be a massive alternative radio hit, that then sort of that opened the doors for me to be a level up as a mixer
Mm-hmm.
of some profile. And then obviously the opportunity, I would say that Kings of Leon Only by the Night is probably the most significant album in terms of people's awareness of me.
Mm.
It's success, for the I don't know how many, maybe I don't know how many millions of albums it sold at this point, but I would say it's 20 to 25 million maybe, at this point. And being a producer on that kind of gives you a real leg up. I mean,
Yeah.
and then so that leads to opportunities with Kaleo, a
Mm-hmm.
great record that you helped me make.
Yeah.
James Bay, which was just slightly before your time, unfortunately, but
Literally
you know,
like 3 days. You guys finished on like a Friday, and I met you like that following Monday.
yeah. Um, so, it's just like a progression. One thing builds off the next. And, we constantly have to transform our identity is. It's just
Yeah.
like with me, you went from starting as an intern,
Mm-hmm.
working as the assistant engineer, took the engineer's chair, and now you're on your own, and you're going to continue to do great things. And I believe that 100%. I've always felt that. And, now you're doing the work of what's next. You don't
Mm.
work with Jacquire, you know, you know,
Yeah.
and so that's like, now you're not that you weren't your own person, but it's like you're not part of a package with me. You're your own. And so you now have to, you'll do the things that will change people's awareness of you and
Sure.
give you opportunities, and it will just continue to grow.
That's the hope. We'll see. We'll see how it
It
goes
will,
before then.
man.
But
It will. If you do it listen, dude, if we do this, if we do all this shit for the right reason,
yeah, I yeah.
it's amazing to me and this goes back to the earlier question too, of like mentorship. And another reason that I am I try to be a good person to be around and be giving of my time, because I've been around some real assholes,
Mm.
not only in the studio, but in the world. And it's just like, especially in the studio, obviously, because that's like the thing I was the most hungry to be successful at.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't want to be like that person.
Right.
They're awful. So I'm going to make sure that I'm not like that. And I heard a story at some point about like how Quincy Jones, everybody thought how Quincy was so cool because you know, he's Quincy Jones, but he'd sit down and at dinner or lunch or something at the studio,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd talk to the assistant engineer,
Mm-hmm.
or he'd talk to the people around, and it's like he was interested.
Yeah.
And when you show that kind of care and awareness for other people, then they show up and work extra hard for you, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
So it's just like, that's like in life. So you just kind of want to be a good person, because I guess the point that I was going to make is that you never know in any situation, and I've learned this especially with my passion for golf,
mm-hmm.
that the people you meet, just randomly,
Mm-hmm.
um, can can have a significant change in your life. It's
Yeah.
just, I've met people, have a golf hat on and met somebody in the airport,
Mm-hmm.
and made a great friend, a great connection, opens up kind of like other opportunities.
Yeah.
You just never know, really. And all that to say is, being a person of quality is what gives you the best opportunities.
Yes.
It's not just about being a badass in the studio and getting a killer sound.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's about character too. About there's a handful of people that I can think of that are fantastic. I mean, better engineers than I probably will ever be, but their hindrances is their inability to connect with people and inability to play the game's not really the right word, but to just play the game in the studio, because it is, it's kind of a game, especially when you're on your way up. You have to play along, and you have to, uh, you know, go with whoever is calling the shots. And
Right.
and if you're not willing to do that, it's going to be some heavy sledding for you, because it doesn't matter how great of an engineer you are. I'm to an extent, if you're a dick or you're session cancer, where it slowly starts to just change the mood of the session, or it starts to bring the vibe down, then you're going to want to get somebody else in there, regardless of.
Absolutely. And I know you and I have seen that very same sort of situation play out multiple times.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's like you will be willing to accept someone with less skill who is easier to be around and easier to work with, because that's just, you can learn the skills. You can't necessarily undo your personality, if that
Right.
makes sense. You know what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say?
Yeah.
So
And having an awareness doesn't mean that you have to be a benign person.
no,
It just means you need to be a good observer and aware of how your personality impacts a particular space, other people, a moment.
yes,
And if you actually want a great result, and your sort of natural personality might muddy the water, well, then you need to modify yourself. You need
mm-hmm.
to, because it's not. Yeah, it's unfortunate when people, the show is all about them.
Right. That's
Yeah.
that's not what this is
So
about.
yeah, it's a people skill.
Yeah.
It's a people skill. And honestly, sometimes, as because we've had a lot of very close personal conversations, and because we've been through a lot together, you know, uh, sometimes you're in a situation and you have to, not that you betray yourself or
Mm-hmm.
your feelings, but I'm not talking about lying, but you have to just sort of, you have to make sure that you respond appropriately to the situation so that you can get the result that you need.
Right. Yes.
You have to be your true self, but you have to be careful about how you
Mm-hmm.
conduct yourself to get the result, because
Right.
it's
I
um
would akin that back to sort of, playing the game, because
mhm.
if you're not careful and you address something improperly, even though it may need to be addressed, but you address it at an inappropriate time or in a way that you know you shouldn't have, it can sink the day or the session or the song or whatever. It can really sour the way things are going. So that's an important point to make, of like, it's not, you don't have to lie, you have to just be strategic about how you're going to approach something, and really think long term of like,
Yes.
is this something that, yes, this is something that needs to be addressed, but no, it doesn't need to be addressed right now because there's a bigger, more important goal to achieve first. um
Can I just add one small thing there?
100%.
It's not about being perfect either.
Right.
It's like if you put forth that kind of effort to um if you put forth that kind of effort of communication
Mm.
and representing yourself in the situation, I'm not saying it's not about being perfect, because even when you're trying to do that, you still may say something that doesn't come out the right way or is misunderstood. But if in general that is the person that you're being, it's more easy to resolve
Mm-hmm.
that miscommunication or that insult or whatever,
Right.
because you're standing on the basis of a good, honest relationship.
Right. You're
So it's not about being perfect. It's not about playing a game in a way where you're trying to manipulate someone or be perfect.
right.
It's just do it in a way that just gives everything a better opportunity. And when you do make a misstep, that you can then you're given the grace to recover. You
Right.
can say, you can apologize and say, you hopefully smooth things out.
Yeah. That's an important distinction to make, with me saying play the game, and it's not play the game to win and manipulate. It's to win for everybody and win for the project and win for the overall goal. Um, it's an important distinction. You mentioned sort of, not only my sort of future, but yours as well, and that ties into sort of the next thing I wanted to talk about is, where do you see the future of music production heading, and maybe more importantly, where do you see yourself fitting in that in the 5 years from now? Because I mean, obviously 2020 changed a lot for a lot of us, and we've
Mm-hmm.
we've changed how we work, but there's a lot of changes happening. So how do you see things moving forward?
Um, it's, just in terms of like the general landscape of things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, I see things being more like remote interactions like this.
Mm-hmm.
I see we've been working remotely, and like we've been mixing remotely for years.
Right.
That is almost like commonplace now. Whereas before, that was like an event, before there was automation
Mm-hmm.
and the ability to recall things easily. When the world was a different place, everybody had to be present to get, not only say, yeah, that's good, but they had to kind of be involved.
Right.
And that's kind of gone away. We're very used to that. I think we're looking at another level and layer of that.
Mm.
Um, it kind of it's a difficult thing for me to wrap my head around, but I'm starting to do the research on how to conduct sessions where um, I can be involved and engineer remotely. Like, give me permission to run your session from, remotely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not terribly excited about it, but I also know that um, in order to make good on opportunities that I want to be involved in,
Right.
that it's going to be a necessary thing. And there's a certain amount of convenience to it. I mean, as our lives have gotten so busy, and I, um, it's there's a lot of negatives to it too, but to be able to just kind of cycle through all the different things you need to interact with it on a daily basis. I mean, there is a convenience factor to it too. In terms of like where the music business is going, I don't know if that's part of it. I don't really know, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's music will always be an incredibly important part of people's life experience, the soundtrack to their lives and those experiences. It will be a community of identity, and connection. Uh, just like good and bad emotion, highs and lows. It's all sort of wrapped up in it. Music is the most universal form of communication we have.
Yeah.
Art's right in there, but music is art.
Right.
I think people probably spend more time listening to music than they do going to the museum
Right.
in general, but it's all kind of the same thing. It's just like, it's a universal vehicle of communication. I don't know what the business is going to be,
Yeah.
just in terms of, because music is also being consumed in, in so many ways. It's like it's about the devices we have. It's sort of the soundtrack for all the stuff that we look at. Our
Yeah.
lives have become so focused on, a screen in front of us,
Yeah.
and sharing our adventures out in the world on a screen with each other,
Mm-hmm.
that music, it's always going to exist, but I don't know that it has the same monetary value that it used to have.
Yeah.
I don't think that means that, someone like yourself who is established on their way on the journey, that means that you can't excel and get to a place that you make a good living doing it, because there's always going to be space for the experts to work and help, guide and participate in music. But it's different. There's so many schools, and I mean, I participate in tons of things that are educating people and empowering people to make their own music and make things that sound professional. You don't need to hire a professional to have something sound professional if you're willing to put in the time and you have the aptitude for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But even if someone can be successful at that level, there's always going to be someone that they're looking up to for help.
Right. Or
And
going to figure out how to do that thing. Or
right.
yeah.
Beyond that, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what the where it's all headed. And then for me personally, I'm transitioning out of being a full-time record maker, partially because of a career arc, where I'm at in my career, where I'm at in my life, my age, the music that I listen to, the way that I'm interested and willing to make music, and the other opportunities I have that give me inspiration, and then I'm excited to get out there and figure out and sort of transform my opportunities. Now, my career in music and my background as a record producer and has helped me develop a lot of skills that I can then take to other areas. And of course, the attraction to me is the success that I've had, and what I can participate, what in participating with someone else, what I can offer.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that I'm going to stop making records. I'm just going to be more selective about it, because in order to do these other things I'm interested in, I have to balance the time.
Right. Yeah.
So, it's interesting, but you know me, man. It's like, I've already switched out my technology in the studio.
Yeah.
The last couple production projects that I've been doing, they're small. One of them is just a single song. One's 4 songs.
Yeah.
I don't know that I regret saying this. It feels a little bit strange, but I haven't used any of my gear. I've just been purposely working all in the box.
Yeah.
Because because I'm excited to figure it out and push it as far as it can go, and give input back to those people that I'm partnered with on it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is the studio of the future.
Yeah, and you are, for those that are listening that may not know, you're referring to using Luna, right?
That's a big part of it. That is definitely a big part of it, and that, the platform that Universal Audio has created, and I guarantee you, we're going to see in the next year or two, even the big established companies are going to start chasing some of what Universal Audio has done.
100%.
And it is the studio of the future. That does not mean that I'm going to suddenly sell all my gear,
right,
or not use my console in the future. It's just, for now, I'm really diving in all the way, because it's really the only way that I can truly figure out how to get the best out of it, and then also help develop the platform for use by others.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, in my experience with it, my feeling of satisfaction and the sonic result and the journey of it, I feel I don't feel less about it than I do with using all the traditional stuff.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you give, you give an opportunity to make a record. You give me an opportunity to make a record, or like our good friend Vance Powell. It's like, our work is going to sound like our work.
Right.
It's not, it is, some people's reputation is kind of built on the environment that they're in and all the analog gear that they use.
Right.
And it's all sexy and cool, and definitely having my console is more unique sounding than using a made up console in any DAW.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But so that gives me a little bit of a sonic edge, because not many other people have that.
Sure.
Right. But at the end of the day, I do know that the choices I make and the paths that the paths I go down, if you put the work side by side,
yeah,
it won't sound incredibly different. It'll sound pretty similar, because it really only what it mostly has to do with is decision making of the artist. And I say artist when identifying myself, yourself, Vance.
Yeah.
It's like it becomes our voice. All these things are just, they're tools.
Exactly.
So
no,
I hope that kind of makes sense. And
no, it does. That's I've been saying that for for years. The gear is important, but it's not the most important. The most important is the engineer, the ears, the experience. It's that old adage of, like, if you hire me to do a job and I do it in 10 minutes and I charge you a number that seems insane, you're not paying me for the 10 minutes. You're paying me for the 30 years that took, to get to do that job in 10 minutes. And it's a very similar thing with audio, and it's you are the commodity. It's not that console, although I do love that console and the console sounds great. You're going to sound like you no matter what. I can hear a Jacquire King record and go, that's a Jacquire record. It's the same, like Vance. You can hear a Vance record. You can hear an Eric Valentine record. And if you know what you're listening to, you can go, oh, I bet this is so-and-so. And most of the time you look, it's like, oh yeah, that's them. And they could have done it on a fucking 002 or a Studer. It doesn't really matter as much. Those things can help, but it's up here, and it's the decisions you make, the environment that you create, the empowerment you give to the artist, and on top of that, the technical skill as well. And my experience with Luna, I run my entire studio off of one Apollo X8P in Luna, and I do not miss any gear ever. I mean,
pretty wild, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, would it be nice? Sure. I'd like to have, a nice channel strip of something, but I do not need it at all. I'm happy, and in most cases, the trade-off that you get with the immediacy of being able to make really creative decisions that you aren't typically able to make in an analog world, or that if you were going to make would take some time to set up and if I want to do a crazy delay throw, I might have to patch something in, and we're gonna have to do this thing, and that can be a really fun thing that gets people excited. But the immediacy, the trade-off that you have to make really fun and wild decisions like really quickly is just, I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything at this point. I love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, man. I'm
Yeah.
right there with you.
I'm really excited. I'm going to talk to Ben, I think next week. I'm going to, get him on, and we'll chit chat about.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm really excited because this podcast inevitably turns into the Universal Audio Hour, because like with Mark from Pure Mix, we went on a tangent, and then me and Dan were just, it always comes back to just, Universal Audio right now is the front runner for a lot of things. And like you said, I think everybody's just playing catch up. They're all trying to figure out what's next. So
absolutely. And it's just, it's just so cool to be involved. It's so cool to be involved. And, I really feel like in a year or two, it's going to be insane where all this has gotten to.
Oh yeah.
It's already, there's, in some ways, does the platform make you take a step back from some other DAWs maybe you've worked in because of, doesn't have all the same feature sets, not quite as advanced, but it's all coming. It's just, it's such an incredibly huge job that they've, that they've undertaken. And, I know that they kind of, people take shots at them because it is, I wouldn't say it's underdeveloped. It's not underdeveloped. It's just not as developed as people might wish it was right now.
Right.
And you just got to understand that the only way that these things can become, as powerful is people just have to use it.
Yeah.
And the masses have to speak, and you've got to figure out what works and doesn't, what works and doesn't. And, it's like, I get alpha and beta software all the time. I'm right there using all of the development software. And some days it's kind of a pain in the ass because, someone spent a week, cleaning up and optimizing one sort of area of the program, and it breaks another area unbeknownst. And it's hard to know until someone says, "Hey, this is screwed up."
Yeah.
And it's like, "Oh, okay, well, we can, we go back and we'll fix that." It's just, you can't remodel a house without like knocking down some walls.
Right. And like you said, they took on a massive fucking undertaking. I mean, they basically tried to cram 30 years of coding experience and know-how into like 4 or 5 years or however long. I mean, it's not been that long that they've really been working on the actual program. And
Right.
Then as far as testing goes, maybe 2 years?
Yeah.
I mean,
in the fashion that we are now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
At the most. Yeah.
I mean, I'm continually shocked, and admittedly, I was skeptical at first, and even
I know you were, but that's understandable.
Yeah. And then as soon as I got in, I was like, oh yeah, well, I mean, this is fantastic. And then even, things that I thought might be sort of a deal breaker, or maybe a deal breaker for the moment until they got a certain feature, like, oh, well, they don't have this yet. Maybe I'll still use Pro Tools. It wasn't a factor, like I was like grouping. I was kind of like, well, they didn't have grouping at first. Maybe that's going to be kind of a pain in the butt. I'll just, work in Pro Tools. No, worked in Luna and was like, if I really need something to be edited, I'll fly it to Pro Tools and edit it. But I much prefer putting it back into Luna and just,
Exactly. And even in those cases where you just kind of figure out what the workaround is and kind of suffer through it a little bit.
Yeah.
Pro Tools is not, it's certainly not perfect.
No.
Tons of gripes about it, but it's just like, you learn to work. I feel like where Luna's at kind of takes me back, I don't know, on a couple very small points, takes me back 10 or more years.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that big of a deal.
No, it's really not.
Pro Tools, we didn't have playlists in Pro Tools for years,
Right.
or tons of things that make, or the amount of voices we have now, or
Yeah.
delay compensation,
Well,
all these things. I mean, tons of us made records in the platform before all those things were available.
yeah.
And you, I've told you this. It's like back in the late 90s, you edit a drum track and you basically, you had to hit Command F
Yeah.
for it to render all the fades, and it would take all night. And you
Yeah.
just prayed that when you showed back up at the studio that the computer didn't crash.
Oh God.
And it was, it was done. And it's just like, you just adapt, really.
Yeah. I mean, we get all too accustomed. Like, we forget comping in Pro Tools is not that new. Like, it's really not. But people are like, oh, they don't have comping yet. It's like, well, Pro Tools hasn't had it for that long either. It's like we just got so used to certain things that people throw fits about it.
Well, I mean, listen, but we talk about that stuff all the time. I send them,
Mhm.
I send them daily logs. Like, so I have, like, in my computer, I have like a little helper app that helps extract pretty advanced logs for them. Send them logs every day. I communicate my thoughts and troubles I've had. And, so these things are being thought about. The list of the to-do list is a zillion miles long.
Sure.
And it's really just about figuring out where the priorities are.
Right.
And what the low-hanging fruit are. I mean, sometimes a very simple request is actually a very significant effort to implement.
I'm sure.
So it's like, it's something that maybe have to, well, we can live without that for a while because it's going to take an awful lot of work to do it.
Right.
So we'll just push it to the back. Like, let's bring up some of the easy stuff.
Right.
What are the most significant things that need to happen next? There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah. And you don't want to trade any of that for stability, which it seems it's so stable right now. So
I didn't understand. You don't want to create what?
You don't want to trade any of that for stability,
No.
And right now the stability has been fantastic. So kudos to them. We'll move on from the UA thing. I'm going to move to some 5 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Or I say rapid fire, but we always end up going on a tangent anyways. But
am I supposed to answer these quickly? Is that the idea?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I don't know. All right. I'll do my best.
Not quite as much back and forth as typical. What was the last record you listened to front to back?
Oh, man. Golly. Well, that's not going to be an easy answer.
Yeah.
I got to clear out the cobwebs out of my brain. It's weird. I don't really listen to, I think I'm much like the world. I don't really listen to albums all the way through that much anymore.
Well, we can switch it to what's the last thing you streamed?
The last thing I streamed would probably have been some old ZZ Top.
Standard. I like it. Favorite meal?
I think actually Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers off Tres Hombres.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. That's a good one.
There's a little bit of a look into that adolescent punk I am.
Yeah. Favorite meal?
My current favorite meal would probably be a poke bowl.
Ooh, yeah. That's good. Are there more spots out there now? Or is it T-Op? I know T-Op's close, but
yeah, Poke Bros in Cool Springs. I ate it last night. They deliver. They're fast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
And I do miss Franklin. Most overrated piece of gear.
Certain speakers.
I think I know. Okay. Yep. Favorite?
I don't know. How would you answer that question?
Ooh. I think my answer would probably be something like a Fairchild, because it's, everyone gets so bonered up over a Fairchild, and then every time you plug it in, you're like, didn't.
Well, that's true based on its like market, like its street value.
Right.
Totally.
Yes.
But Eric Valentine's Unfairchild
Yes.
is
See
at a better price point and is actually a great usable piece of gear.
yes, and that is a fantastic plug for Eric because I do make the delineation. The Unfair Child is a fantastic piece of gear with a lot of really cool features. I like how you can change it from feed forward to feedback and all kinds of really cool shit. And it that really is a much more affordable and great piece of gear. I can't wrap my head around like what is it, $40,000 or something like that for.
Oh, I don't know what they've gotten up to. I mean, the last time I thought about a Fairchild, they were like 25, 30.
Okay,
But
I mean we'll say
it's
30.
still, it's like, here's the thing: for $25,000, you can have a badass, Luna setup with almost all the plugins, and I mean, you're good to go.
Shit for that you got all the inputs you need. You got some badass speakers, all the plugins you need. I mean,
Yeah, and microphones, and yeah,
yeah,
you're kind of good to go. It's not, you listen, you walk into, like, if somebody walked into this room and all I had was my rack of Apollos,
yeah,
it wouldn't be, people wouldn't sit down and feel like that they're, you know, that they're in like a studio space as much.
right.
So it's like,
It's not quite as sexy.
not that really matters at the end of the day, but like, early on, I mean, having gear was like part of getting gigs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It can be disappointing to the uninitiated when they walk in and there's, 4 single rack space units and that's your studio.
Right.
And instead of, like a console and 3 or 4 different racks and it's hot as shit because, all this stuff's pumping at once. I mean, there's something to be said for that smell of like old burning dust. That's,
yeah, yeah,
so,
totally. All right, well, go. All right, we're not being very rapid fire.
I know. See, that's what I mean. We always get sidetracked. Favorite bad action movie?
Bad action movie?
Yeah, like 80s or 90s kind of style back, like action movie.
Oh gosh, I don't know, man. Maybe. I can't think. I don't know. Something from Stallone, like Rambo or something, comes to mind.
There you go. I'll take Rambo. Rambo's always a good one.
I just like that original just because it was actually shot on like film.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
The first one just looks way more cinematic than its follow-ups.
Yeah, the other ones it just got like kind of crazy and cartoonish, but that first one was actually like a really dramatic, like great film.
Yeah.
Let's see, what is the last? Here's our last one for the rapid fire. I'm gonna go with, what's the best live concert you've seen?
Ooh, so tough, because I worked in live sound for a long, long time, and
I knew this. I know your catalog, and I knew this was gonna be a tough one.
So, gosh, I don't know, man. It's so hard to answer. I mean, I think the things that, I guess some of the shows that come to mind would be Stevie Ray Vaughan, Rage Against the Machine. But I guess I would say probably a Stevie Ray Vaughan show, Concord Pavilion. I don't forget what the year would have been, but just one of his shows at the Concord Pavilion. I probably saw him about half a dozen times.
God, that makes me jealous. One of my heroes. Well, that concludes the rapid fire. This is our okay. one more for safety question, since the podcast is one more for safety. This one I made specifically for you. If you could play a round of golf anywhere in the world with anyone, alive or dead, where would it be and who would you play with?
Oh my gosh. I'd probably play I would probably play St. Andrews with old Tom Morris.
All right. That's a good one. I had a feeling it might be St. Andrews. I had no idea who it would be with.
Well, just for people that don't know golf, and maybe you don't know who he is old Tom Morris he designed St. Andrews and a lot of the golf courses in Scotland.
Wow.
And huge influence. He was one of the first professional golfers, I guess.
One of the
Just in
OGs.
that, back in the day, someone that ran a golf course, they designed it, they ran the shop, they made clubs for people, they
Wow.
caddied, they kind of did everything, and they were also players. And so this kind of different. When you say professional, it's not what we think of as a professional athlete now, but they
Right.
made their living in the sport.
Okay.
And it wasn't like they weren't an amateur and played the sport like a Bobby Jones, who is an American golfer from the early 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the greats of the game, but he never turned professional. He always kept his amateur status, which basically means you never took money away from prize money away from the game.
Uh-huh.
He was an attorney for his life, and he retired from golf at the age of 27 as well.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Must be sweet to retire at 27.
I know.
I think I'd lose my mind.
Something.
Well, real quick, hit the people with Instagram handle or Twitter, Facebook, whatever cool things you got coming up that you want to promote that we can get out there for more people to see or hear about.
I do. I have a Twitter account. Don't use it. My Facebook is basically, I don't interact with it a ton. It's basically a push from my Instagram. Instagram is where I do almost all of my social media.
Okay.
It's Jacquire King is my Instagram handle. And things that are coming up for me. Today I just sort of put out a Instagram post asking about, I've had this idea for a long time, and as I've been building my social media platform on Instagram and, working with Mix with the Masters and Pure Mix and these other platforms, I've always had it in mind that I'm going to create a little bit of my own space to do some of that stuff. My YouTube is now over 1,000 subscribers.
Hell yeah.
So that I can kind of make an effort there. But this morning I put a post out, the idea of gauging people's response to the idea of having a small private seminar or a small setting seminar, remote, where basically I'm thinking like 10 attendees for a few days, they record the whole thing and then, charge them a premium so that they can have that time with me, and then sort of editing it and sort of repackaging it and selling it at a much lower price point for people.
Right. Okay.
And then putting excerpts of it for free on the YouTube. Those are the things that I'm doing in the social media space. I'm not trying to be a full-time educator. I may do one of those seminars a quarter, just sort of depends. I've also among the many things I'm doing, it's like I've started an artist management company, and I'm not looking for new artists, just to make that disclaimer out there. It's because it's really focused on one artist at the moment, and there's another one that will probably be coming into the fold very soon. But it's really an effort to get behind some things that I really believe in and think that I can help guide and manage out in the world. So but you can find my website too.
Okay.
My website, you can email me on my website, and kind of try to keep up. I try to keep up with that. I'm in the transitional period with the website where I need to find someone else new to help me manage it.
Yeah.
So it's the news feed and some of the stuff is not working as it should, but I do see the emails that come through. And so that's another way to contact me.
Well, all right. Well, I'm so glad we got to do this. It was really good to see you and talk to you. And I'm just glad you were able to take some time out of your busy week to do this. And I just think the world of you, man. I love you, and I hope I get to see you soon.
I love you too, and I appreciate you. I'm so excited for you, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend this time with you. And I'm super grateful. I'm going to get emotional if we keep talking. So.
Well, all right, man. I'll talk to you soon.